Hey there, welcome to my anatomy model project. I have a background in graphic design, so that is what I did to make my models for the three systems of speech: the supralaryngeal system, the laryngeal system, and the respiratory system. I have all of them right here. That is just all of them together. But I will go forth and I will go through all the different designs and talk about all the different models and talk about what they do and everything else. So let's begin. Hello, so here's my setup right here. I have my hands in the shot to point at everything. It's easier for me to do this than holding it and to be in the shot. So this is how I'm going to present it. So just to start off, we just have our three systems of speech: our supralaryngeal right here, our laryngeal, and our respiratory right here. So let's go through each one of those, shall we? So we have our supralaryngeal right here. I drew a little sketch of my head right here just to be like what's inside my head. So to go through that, we have, I'm going to start with the nasal, because the nasal cavity is the easiest thing to knock out on the list of stuff right here. So what the nasal cavity does, of course, it helps with breathing, airflow, producing certain sounds and articulation, and of course I want to also put, it also has to do with taste, because 80% of taste has to do with smell, so that's also really cool. So that's how that connects to chewing and swallowing and eating, and also speech production and breathing. So I'm going to move on real quick to the oral phase. So we have the oral cavity right here. So how I have this set up is really cool. So inside of my head we have my skull. I wanted to show that because of the bone of the teeth and the jaw. So the teeth and the jaw are used for not only articulation with the work of the tongue, but it helps with chewing, going up and down, and also with articulation because of the placement of the tongue connecting the teeth along with the lips allowing for different movements to produce different sounds, and the jaw and the tongue working together to open the mouth and breathe and talk and do all those sorts of things. So since I mentioned the tongue, I'm going to go ahead and mention the different parts of the tongue that we have right here. So there's the body of the tongue, primarily like the bulk of this and the mass of the tongue is right here, and so the overall position of this right here helps with vowel articulation. We have the tip of the tongue, so the tip of the tongue helps a lot with 50% of speech with consonants making contact with the teeth, the lips, and the alveolar ridge right here. We also have the blade of the tongue located behind the tip right here. B is part makes constrictions for the sh sound that you would hear in sheep. And then you have the dorsum right here, D, as the tongue, known as the back. This portion is used in making the first sounds in the words like key and go, and last sound and thing. And this is a rather large part because it connects with the hard palate and soft palate. These also help with articulation as well for the roof of our mouth. And then we have the root of the tongue, which is this back section right here. And so what this does is a long section that forms along the front wall of the pharynx that we will get to in a minute. So the root can move to the back of the wall of the pharynx and locate vowel sounds like hot. Yes, and it's very important in shaping the vocal tract for both vowel and consonant sounds. So for articulation, part of the vowel, it moves, articulates, and allows us to speak, but also chew and eat. And when we chew and eat, the tongue is helping us go ahead and pass that bolus down to our oral cavity right here, and it allows us to move it with the roof of our mouth to also chew and make sure that our soft palate and our uvula right here, that all get to, and the velopharyngeal port right here, it allows us for not having food or constricting their airways for the nasal cavity right here to get in place of that. It allows us to swallow and carry that to the esophagus. So, with that said, we'll move on to the next phase, which is this pharyngeal phase right here. I have 3 different segments right here that would help with the different things that we were going to talk about. So the pharynx, this whole piece right here, which helps with the production of air, airflow through all these different chambers. So they have the nose behind the nasal cavity, ortho behind the mouth cavity, and laryngeal pharynx that goes behind the esophagus. So right here we have the posterior wall of the wall, which is the entrance that opens to permit passage for food or liquid to go through the sphincter and into the upper esophagus. We have our uvula right here, this little pink one right here. If y'all can see that little pink one right here, that's connected to the soft palate right here. And what that does, it creates also saliva to moisten the mouth and throat, but it also aids in eating and drinking. For example, the soft palate and the uvula moved back to the roof of your, back to your mouth, and allows you to swallow and prevents the food and liquid going into your nose. And then I have them right here, the pharyngeal tonsils right here. Just like your other tonsils, these things help off fight bacteria and viruses. We have our epiglottis right here. The epiglottis, acts as a chamber for your windpipe. When you say you got something down your windpipe, it means it went down here. This blocks that for food or anything to go down your windpipe and makes it go down to your esophagus, which is right behind this trachea. This is the trachea right here. And then we have your glottis right here, which we will get to where your voice box is, your laryngeal thing is, which is next. So, with that said, we'll move on to the laryngeal the laryngeal system. So, we have our laryngeal system right here. So, I did 2 other models. I wanted to do one that focuses on what it looks like right here. You have a anterior and posterior. So your laryngeal system, the phonary system, or the larynx. So air travels from the lungs that we will see up to the laryngeal system where the voice is produced. So the voice is produced in the larynx or the voice box. It's mainly made up of all these different cartilages and muscles right here. And it sits on top of the trachea right over here. And it's surrounded by other small cushions of muscles. So during breathing, I have their vocal folds right over here. We have them open and we have them closed. So during breathing, the vocal folds are kept apart like this so that air can move freely into and out of the lungs. And when the voice is required, the vocal folds are brought together and they close up a little bit like this so they can move freely in and out of the lungs. That can set them up to vibrate back to each other. And so the muscles of the larynx bring these folds together tightly enough that when air is pushing out, when we talk, like just now, it develops the lungs, can blow them apart. And by each time they are blown apart, they come together right here, and then they stop and go right here. And so we have our glottis, which I showed on the previous. So our glottis is actually these openings right here. We'll see them right here. So your glottis is the center of your larynx. It's the reason where your voice box contains your vocal folds and your vocal cords. And the glottis helps you breathe, speak, and make sounds in general. We have our false vocal cords, which are these yellow parts right here. And what that is just to function to protect your airway while we speak. So the I always like the example of how this works is where air takes in and you put our hands like this. So this is what they are. So when we're breathing, it's just moving around like this. So it really does like move like that when we're talking, which is the vocal folds. So that is how that helps with speaking and respiration. So then we're going to move on to our last thing is respiration. So of course we have our rib cage. Our rib cage protects our lungs and is also surrounded in different muscles. So then we have, you know, of course, our lungs right here. You know, our respiratory system mostly comprised of our lungs, the rib cage, and the abdomen, our diaphragm right here, and then our trachea and our bronchi, and a whole bunch of different stuff. As I said, it provides movement of air for speech production. It supplies the air, forces of air that we use to generate most sounds. So I also wanted to cover, so of course we all know that lungs for inhale and exhaling, taking the air. We have our trachea, which is our windpipe that carries the air through our throats. And then of course what I want to say we have that branches off right here is our bronchi, and our bronchi carry the air into and from your lungs. They also help with moisture, the air that you breathe, and screen out for foreign particles as well. And so we have our diaphragm right here. And so what our diaphragm right here is a muscle that helps you inhale and exhale when you breathe. But it is also very important in breathing, with speaking and singing. And that's why they say you can control your diaphragm better. You can become a better singer and learn how to breathe properly to carry those sounds and tunes. So it's just really strengthens how you speak in your voice, so you don't speak too much from the throat. So the diaphragm is really important that way. So as I said, I have all these sorts of different diagrams that I made that goes over everything that we have learned, and that is all the 3 different systems of speech. So thank you.